Welcome back to Eucrasia. Partially saying that to myself as I've been away for a few weeks, but with that said, I have been still working at our wonderful meat world. I wasn't sure where to start with the next video on Eucrasia, but I was going through the glossary that I've got going, and I realized I hadn't really thought much about the people of this planet yet. Beyond the four factions, your core, unique, yet main player-minded characters, who actually populates the world that is affected by the factions, and more importantly, what are they? It was straightforward enough to develop the four factions from the four humours, how they might work, as well as fit or go against some classic fantasy tropes. A peek behind the curtain here, but a inspiration for the sanguine was ideas around what if elves were barbarians, or what if elves were sharks. But for civilians, people, farmers and the like, what would they be in terms of a body, something from our anatomy? And do they have to be related to the body so directly? Doing a look into the human body for inspiration, I started looking at things like white blood cells, skin cells, and other cells, cells being the most common element of most organic life. The more specific cells didn't quite feel right. I thought maybe neurons, because they send info, are vast in quantity, but they're related to the brain, and that felt better saved for something else. Perhaps an environment-based thing. If you guys have any ideas, comment below. Eventually, I looked at some artwork and began liking the idea that the normal people, the average quote-unquote humans of a fantasy world, the stock standard civilians, would be known as the cellular. A cellular is a misshapen, often disproportionate cell with arms, legs, and vague facial features. Grotesque at times, but also sort of charmingly off in that kind of Spore or Oblivion character creation way. Like, I can see their structure and kind of all being similar basic makeup, and you can have some sort of inconsistent elements along the way. The sliders are randomized each time they're born, kind of feel. This also helped thematically explain why they may have found themselves stuck in a more subservient or working class role within the world. So, with that concept in mind, let's talk about the people of Eucrasia. The great populace of Eucrasia is not made up of the four factions people alone, but by the more humble cellular beings birthed from the wound over the ages. Their gradual arrival was not given great fanfare or reverence by those who predated it, the sanguine, as the cellular and eventual plasmoids, names given to Eucrasia's sentient peoples who were deemed lesser in ability and use to the world. Plasmoids being a colloquial name, often derogatory for those more aligned or willing to serve the Crimson Ones in later ages. For when the first cellulars spawned, they were met with an already established stronghold to the north, run by grimly efficient beings. Their place in the world was not found but given to them by the Crimson North, and so servitude, work, and expansion became their lives. With each subsequent arrival of a new humor, a new faction, their purpose and function would change, as was the want of the newest faction to find them listless or in need of something done. This is not to say cellular people were without agency, for they too had lives, wants, and aspirations. It was more often these were rarely met by the ambitions of the four. The cellulars, toilers of land, forever second maintainers, had a trait all of their own that was unrecognized as anything more than an odd habit. After all, they could live their lives however they wished, as long as it was useful to a cause for the four factions, though some argue only two really demand of them. This trait was that some of the cellular beings could split. After a certain age, they would split into two smaller versions of themselves, each with individual personalities, skills, and desires. This ability to replicate is something that none of the first three factions possess. The Malank exist and pass with death, so theories of replication or spawning, self-spawning capabilities are abundant but all unconfirmed. Those higher beings that spawned exist until they fade, and though they live far longer lives, far beyond the average cellular, they cannot create more of themselves. Their finite nature is something never discussed or documented, even by the phlegmat, as preserving this fact is almost admitting to their own end, and what would Eucrasia do without them? A cellular's appearance changes drastically from one to the next, with some clear similarities in between. Primarily, their form's color is a faint grey, though depending on area may be slightly mixed with color by their surroundings, be it a tinge of yellow for the arid west, or a bluish hue from the mineral-dense regions in the east. Their shape can be spherical, long, tall, bent or askew in a variety of angles and proportions, but they all possess limbs to walk and limbs for toil. Ocular nodes embedded into their upper head region and a transparent hue show the shifting structure within them. This is partly the reason for other factions viewing them as cruder expulsions from the world. Cellular communities, structures, and towns also vary, but their common understanding of one another is never lost, despite their home region. Draped in clothing or crude armor made of rudimentary flesh with enamel tools, houses and establishments made of calloused plating stacked upon one another. Simplicity by necessity and appreciation of cellular construction and culture is pragmatic. Opulence will not be seen in their clothing or houses. Even the most die-hard plasmoid dog's body will still dress plainly. This does not mean, however, that cellular beings can't appreciate finer things, beauty, or artistry. They want for little, but ask for the chance to see more. When it comes to the Festa, they are on the front lines as neglected sacrificial cannon fodder or phlegmatic test subjects. Almost all Fested cults are made up of primarily cellular people, constructed on the doctrine of revenge or newfound community, fueled by the fact that they have long suffered and others should suffer, or that unity through the rot will humble their domineering rulers. The people of Eucrasia are more its core than some would lead you to believe. They understand the creatures and the world in ways many do not. Treat them well and be treated well, without question. Pretty much the current rundown that I have for just people, the cellular beings of Eucrasia. My thoughts are that they sort of can live anywhere in many different conditions, but they don't have the same level of natural-born fortitude as the other four factions. These are the farmers, the workers, the serfs, that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's sort of filling in more of the world in terms of maybe how it functions. And then my hopes for future videos is to go through some more of the different regions, go through some of the flora and fauna of the deserts, and then eventually the sort of mangroves of the south, and then work our way back east into the deep caverns of the phlegmat. But yeah, I've got some things set up, ready to go. I've just got to get myself back of sorts since returning from abroad. Well, partially abroad. But yeah, anyway, good to be back. Thanks so much, everyone, for your support as well. That's been awesome. Slowly creeping up to 2K subscribers, which is crazy. And that's awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Anyway, I've been Haunted Picnic, and I'll see you all next time.